Hey, I'm Blair Best, and tonight on The Story, we begin in Salem, outside the Capitol. There's less than a week left in this year's legislative session, and it is still unclear if a landmark transportation funding package will pass. Tensions are coming to a boiling point, leading to 9 Republicans boycotting today's session. It's our big story tonight.
Indexing the CPI to inflation is abdicating our responsibility. I know that people are talking about it saying
we're indexing it. We're not giving it to another agency.
Okay. Indexing any sort of gas tax, indexing abdicates our responsibility because it lacks accountability for an agency to come back to the legislature and say that we need to have an increase in taxes. When we talk about being grossly irresponsible, that's what this is. I will be a no on this vote.
Excuse me. You are impugning all of us that have worked on that bill. So stop with that.
I use Representative Gamba's words.
Stop
he said
with
grossly
it.
irresponsible.
You've made your point, Representative.
I'm using words that somebody on this committee actually used.
You guys, that's it. That's
Enough.
it. We'll carry this into another room.
Okay, so the pressure is certainly on the rise in Salem. Democratic Senator Chris Gorsuch of Gresham interrupting Republican Representative Shelley Bossart Davis during a work session on the big transportation funding bill, which has quite a way to go before this year's legislative session ends on Sunday. Bossart Davis filing a complaint against Gorsuch, claiming he violated the legislature's respectful workplace policy. I caught up with her today. She was home, boycotting, waiting for an apology from Senator Gorsuch.
It was shocking, obviously. I mean, if I kind of go back and I watched it and heard, other colleagues talk about the bill, how egregious it was for minutes upon minutes upon minutes, called the bill and the process wrong and egregious and grossly obese, and nobody else got shut down and shouted at. So I think that it was actually a terrible process. It was quite shocking, and something that shouldn't be allowed from a person in leadership.
Also sitting at home today instead of inside the House chamber, House Republican leader Christine Drazen.
I was angry on behalf of my caucus member that they would be disrespected in that committee process.
9 Republicans in total participated in the boycott, refusing to show up to the House floor over concerns about Senator Gorsuch's behavior that they called wholly inappropriate. But just about 3 hours ago, I got a text from Senator Gorsuch. Take a look. It says, to allow for the committee's focus to remain on completing the Oregon Transportation Reinvestment Package this session, I have offered my resignation from the Joint Committee on Transportation Reinvestment effective immediately. I support the compromise that's being offered from the House, and I look forward to voting in support of it on the Senate floor. But it doesn't end there. Today, Senate President Rob Wagner also left the Joint Committee on Transportation. Now, that move comes after a different bit of controversy when Wagner kicked Democratic Senator Mark Meek off the committee last week after learning that Meek was going to vote against the bill, putting the bill at risk of dying before even reaching the House floor. Now, with Wagner on the committee, the bill moved forward to the House floor today, but was immediately sent back to the Transportation Committee for amendments. 2 other Democratic senators will replace Wagner and Gorsuch on the committee, neither of whom would talk with me on camera today. But in a statement released just about an hour ago, Representative Bossart Davis said in part, the decision by both of these men to step down from this committee without acknowledging the impact of Senator Gorsuch's misogynistic rage towards me shows that this is merely an effort to expedite shoving through the most expensive tax increase in Oregon history with 6 days left in the session. Now, I asked Senator Gorsuch if he plans to apologize. He's not responded. But putting the personal politics to the side for just a moment, let's get back to the reason behind it. Money for the state's transportation agency. House Bill 2025 would raise nearly $15 billion over the next decade, mainly by increasing taxes and other fees, including a gas tax hike, phasing in a new per-mile tax for electric vehicles, and a new point-of-sale fee on new car purchases. Most of the new revenue would go to the state highway fund, which pays for basic operations and road maintenance.
You have Oregonians that are struggling with high gas prices already, and then you're going to add this on top of that. So it's a huge tax increase. It hits all Oregonians. The payroll tax that's in this bill will triple, and that hits every Oregonian that gets a paycheck.
That was Republican Senator Bruce Starr. In February, he was tasked with leading an effort to address ODOT's accountability issues. He told me today this bill does not go far enough to hold the agency accountable.
There's some of that stuff that's in this bill, so that is good. I mean, there's some good pieces in this legislation, I think, that are important. I personally probably would have wanted to go a little further. Reforms of the agency, how they do business, some of the communication that needs to occur within the agency and then outside the agency.
So I asked him what it would take for him to vote yes on this massive bill.
A lot, to be honest, and especially now since this rollout, I think, has been so clumsy from the majority, and the public now have their eyes on this tax bill.
Today, I also caught up with the Democratic Senator Con Pham, and I will say, my photographer and I walked the halls of the Senate and House all afternoon trying to find a Democrat to talk with us about this bill, and Senator Pham was the only one who agreed. She supports the bill and acknowledges that the rise in taxes is one of the main sticking points for those against it.
I think all of us are deeply concerned about the rising cost of living in Oregon, and I take that very seriously. And that's actually a big reason why I'm supporting House Bill 2025, because I think the costs of inaction are much greater. I'm really committed to passing a transportation package. I know that there's a lot of tension, a lot of stress, but I'm really I would say my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, I've heard, are really committed to making sure that we build a transportation system that works for all Oregonians.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, the House sent the bill back to the Joint Committee on Transportation, where more amendments can be made. Rumors circling the Capitol today of what those changes would be include lowering the current proposed 15-cent hike to the gas tax over the next few years, not indexing that tax to inflation, and potentially even removing the tax on new and used car purchases.
And it might be enough to get House Democrats to vote yes, and 18 Democrats in the Senate to vote yes, but we will see.
I would give it low odds. Oregonians cannot afford this, and it is massive. It is huge overreach. I think if they would have come up with a proposal that was more balanced and certainly one that listened to Oregonians, I think that there would be an opportunity for them.
Politics is the art of compromise, so I look forward to seeing what that amendment holds.
So the bill hangs in the balance. If there are increased taxes or new fees, which are expected in some capacity, the bill would need supermajority approval in both chambers. That's 36 votes in the House and 18 votes in the Senate. Democrats have exactly that number in both chambers. But if any Democrats break from the party, like Senator Mark Meek has said he would, without major changes to the bill, Democrats will need a Republican to join them. As of tonight, it's not clear when the Transportation Committee will hold the next work session on House Bill 2025. And it'll have to be soon because the last day of the session is Sunday, the 29th, because the bill still needs approval in both the House and the Senate before the end of the day on Sunday. So, how do you see the current transportation drama playing out at the Capitol? Let us know what's going through your mind. Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And while we're on the topic of transportation, let's head north to the state of Washington. Troopers there have some new high-tech data to crack down on speeders, and Washington State Police is one of the first agencies in the nation to use it. And while Southwest Washington is not part of this exact mission just yet, information from your cell phone is being analyzed to help catch speeders all across the state. Drew Mickelson explains.
I-5 through Joint Base Lewis McChord is infamous for its traffic slowdowns, but it's also one of the worst spots for speeders, at least according to data from the cell phones of South Sound commuters.
This is so exciting to be using data that we haven't had access to before.
The state's Traffic Safety Commission purchased data collected by apps like Google Maps or Waze and information from insurance companies to determine the most dangerous stretches of Washington's highways. For the next 6 weeks, the State Patrol's aviation unit and ground patrols will be going after speeders at 4 of those locations. I-5 from Joint Base Lewis-McChord north to Fife, a section of I-5 north of Fife up to Auburn, I-5 north and south of Everett, and 14 miles of I-90 just west of Spokane out to almost the Idaho border.
We are at the very tip of the iceberg trying to understand this data.
Safety Commission Acting Director Shelley Baldwin says since law enforcement can't be everywhere, the driver data helps predict where troopers are needed. And no personal information is ever gathered by the state.
They don't collect it like to look at a driver. They're collecting it to really build this huge database of information that comes directly real time.
Since COVID, the state's fatality figures have been the highest in decades. Baldwin says learning where drivers are speeding or using their cell phones will hopefully reverse that trend.
These driving behaviors, along with buckling or not buckling your seatbelt, are factors in 75% of deadly crashes. If we can get a handle on these, we can turn these numbers around and get back to working towards zero.
A spokesperson for the Traffic Safety Commission says Washington State is one of the first in the union to use this cell phone data to go after speeding drivers and distracted drivers.
Well, now to an update on an investigation that began in the state of Washington and is now having an impact here in Oregon. The State Police Academy in Salem is banning the Sig Sauer P320, there it is, handgun, due to safety concerns. In a letter this month, Director Phil Castle of the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training told Oregon's 180 police agencies, quote, there is enough documented concern to ban the gun out of an abundance of caution. Now, we've reported on growing concerns about the P320 firing without the trigger being pulled, with several videos appearing to show that exact thing happening all across the country. The company who makes the gun, Sig Sauer, has issued numerous statements saying the gun cannot fire on its own. But in that letter to the Oregon agencies that we mentioned, Director Castle wrote, I have had several conversations with firearms experts who have shared their opinions and concerns. This includes one Academy expert who experienced what he and witnesses attested was an uncommanded discharge in the holster. Oregon's Academy is surveying police agencies to try and determine how many actually use the P320. In our past reporting, we were told that Portland, Gresham, Oregon State Police, and the Marion County Sheriff's Office do not use it. Well, turning our attention now to the rapidly developing situation in the Middle East. President Trump posting on social media this afternoon that, quote, 12-day war between Israel and Iran will end in the coming hours thanks to a ceasefire agreement. And within the last hour, Iran said as long as Israel stopped its attacks by 4 a.m. local time, they would halt their attacks as well. As of this moment, no Israeli strikes have been reported after 4 a.m. in Tehran. Now, that announcement comes after Iran launched a missile attack against the largest U.S. military base in the region, in Qatar, targeting the Al Udeid Air Base, home to up to 10,000 U.S. troops. There are no reports of deaths or injuries. Qatar condemned the attack as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty, airspace, and international law, saying it intercepted all but one missile. Iran warned ahead of time it was retaliating against the U.S. strikes on 3 key Iranian nuclear facilities. And we're getting our first look now at those targets, thanks to satellite imagery. Isfahan Technology Center taking a direct hit, and at Natanz, a crater remains where a bomb hit, but it's difficult to determine damage at a third facility buried deep underground. And it's unclear where Iran stored its enriched uranium and if it was hit. The Trump administration is confident it was.
We have a high degree of confidence that where those strikes took place is where Iran's enriched uranium was stored.
Iran is turning to Russia now, its foreign minister meeting with Russian President Putin, and there are still concerns that Iran could potentially activate sleeper cells that it claims to have on U.S. soil. Meanwhile, in our nation's capital today, congressional leaders are calling for the president to meet with the so-called Gang of Eight, a group of top lawmakers often briefed on classified intelligence matters. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says ranking members of the House and Senate Intel committees are waiting for justification for the bombing of the nuclear sites.
The use of military force, which is offensive in nature, must be approved by the House and the Senate. That's according to the Constitution. It's not optional, Donald. It's not. Yes, we can never allow Iran to become a nuclear power. And of course, Israel has the right to defend itself, and will support Israel's security in an ironclad manner. But the Trump administration intentionally decided to ignore the aggressive diplomacy that was available to it to try to address the Iranian nuclear threat and ignore the requirements of the Constitution, and now they've got to explain why.
President Trump is scheduled to travel to the NATO summit in the Netherlands tomorrow morning. By that time, we should know whether or not the ceasefire he announced is actually holding. Well, coming up next on the story, a break from politics. Our Environment Northwest team shows us how tribes in the state of Washington are working together for a full-size game of Lincoln Logs with the help of helicopters. Why they're doing it when the story returns. Well, a powerful partnership is bringing new life to a river in Washington state, altered by development. The Tulalip tribes and state leaders are working together to build dozens of artificial beaver dams northeast of Seattle, using downed trees and storm debris to slow the water, restore salmon habitat, and hopefully heal the land. Alex McClune takes us to the heart of the restoration.
Whenever I see a bald eagle, I just feel like we're doing a good thing.
It's a sign, the Tulalip tribes say, that something is working.
Large wood in the river does many important things for salmon and for the overall watershed health.
One by one, through the air, the state is stacking more than 400 pieces of wood and storm debris like Lincoln Logs at the direction of the tribes.
We proposed it and designed it, but we could not do it without the DNR's assistance in providing wood.
Across 8 miles of the Pilchuck River, human intervention revives the ebbs and flows of the water.
Behind me, you can see a dam that was built earlier this morning, and notice how it's already changing the speed of the water, rushing down the middle, but off to the side, slowing down for that salmon.
A closer look shows some of the Chinook fry already around the rocks.
When they're babies, salmon want to be able to get out of the main channel of the river and into a place where they can hide from bigger fish and other predators.
It's a new vision for what a river should look like after the Tulalip tribes and the city of Snohomish removed the diversion dam in 2018. One by one, these artificial beaver dams act as a band-aid to help the Pilchuck rise and reach surrounding trees.
We've learned after a couple hundred years of taking wood out of our rivers how important it is to have wood in the river.
These advocates admiring this milestone say the land doesn't produce enough wood on its own.
Almost every river in Puget Sound is wood starved. Timber and salmon, two such foundational parts of Washington's culture and economy, are working together.
The project has taken a lot of collaboration and money, nearly $1 million in federal, state, and tribal funds. Organizers say they're already seeing signs of success. In the first day, Chinook salmon are already returning thanks to Chinook helicopters.
Well, let's check in with meteorologist Joe Ranieri now for a look at just how much rain fell in the last few days, as well as what you should expect in the days ahead. Joe?
Well, Blair, for the entire month of June so far, we're looking at almost 2 inches of rain, which is wild because if you look back at the last couple of Junes, they typically start off hot and dry, and we don't really see much in terms of a drop of rain until potentially the later part of the summer. Well, that's not the case this year. In fact, the first full day of summer felt more like fall or almost spring, with temperatures in the mid to the upper 50s for daytime highs and almost an inch of rain. So between Friday and Saturday, it was 1.74 inches of rain. And there's a slight chance to see a few more showers roll back into the forecast by Wednesday and Thursday. But Blair, those amounts will be on the lighter side, maybe up to 1/10 of an inch of rain.
Okay, good.
So for the average rainfall for June, like I said, is 1.63 inches. For July and August combined, it's almost an inch of rain. Then we really don't start to see the rain return until mid-late September. But these are some of the numbers so far we're looking at for the month of June. Take a look at this number, almost 2 inches of rain since basically June 5th. And normally we're at 1 1/3 inches, and yeah, we're well over 1/2 of an inch above where we should be. It's good to have a surplus this time of year because of the wildfires, of course, that have already been popping up throughout parts of the gorge and the east side of the Cascade. So this is a model showing what we could be looking at heading into Wednesday and Thursday. I think we're more dry than wet come Wednesday. I think we could look up close to 1/10 of an inch of rain by Thursday. So if that's the case, we could be looking at close to 2 inches of rain as we get ready to wrap up the month of June. We have about a week left, right? Well, exactly a week left. Right now, we're seeing temperatures very pleasant, right around the low 80s up and down the I-5 corridor. So here's the setup as we get in the later part of this week. We have that ridge of high pressure that we saw yesterday and today. It'll stick around for a good portion of tomorrow, but I'm looking at the upper level low that's going to be moving on shore late tomorrow afternoon and into Wednesday morning. It's going to be bringing in some increasing clouds and some cooler conditions as well. So as we put it into motion, here we are tomorrow morning. You're looking at some foggy conditions along the coast, nothing but sunshine throughout the later part of the afternoon. Now we go into Thursday. This model I think is a little overdone. It really wants to bring in some heavy downpours. I don't think it's going to be that wet. Again, I think maybe 1/10 of an inch of rain if we're lucky. And now as we go back to look at what we've seen so far this month, yeah, we started things off really on the cooler side with temperatures in the low 70s. On the 96-degree day there, that was a record-breaking temperature. That was the warmest we've really been. We had a little heat wave, if you want to call it that, but technically it really didn't stick around for more than 2 days or so. In terms of rain, the 3 days that we've seen rain have really made a splash, if you will. That adds up to 1.92 inches of rain, like I told you. And out there tonight, we're looking at temperatures in the upper 70s to low 80s. We did top out in the low 80s earlier this afternoon, and that's going to be the case heading into tomorrow. I know we've been talking a lot about the rainfall, Blair, but we got to bring in the snow. The snow that came down outside Timberline Lodge over the weekend, anywhere from 4 to 5 inches outside Timberline Lodge and Mount Hood Meadows. Not out of the realm of possibility to see that happen, but for the later part of June to see that, kind of interesting. So looking into tomorrow, we'll be looking at temperatures in the mid to the upper 50s, topping out at 85 degrees. If we don't get to 85 tomorrow, it's because those clouds kind of rolled in a little bit earlier than expected. But regardless, a nice day ahead for tomorrow. A little bit cooler for Wednesday and Thursday, but we bounce back pretty quick because we're going to be looking at a typical more summer weather pattern heading into the end of next weekend.
Okay, Joe Ranieri, I'd love to see all the sunshine behind you there.
I do too.
Thanks so much. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Straight Talk is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. Have a great Monday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.